So just when you think we've reached the limit of how many times the story can change direction, it finds a way to add just another twist. This entire thing is like the plot of a fucking Dan Brown novel by this point, right? There have been so many fucking twists until then. It's true, it's not true, it's true, it's not true. Oh, who cares? Now it's Indian all of a sudden, so well,
No, we claim everything is Indian. I, we have done that with fucking Machu Picchu and fuck knows what else. We claim everything is fucking Indian, dude.
oh,
That holds no scientific validity whatsoever.
says you, Ashmita.
Please. Did you guys? Oh my God. Have you heard of the story of this man in Dubai who just went around claiming that the that the mosque, some mosque over there was actually a temple and he got arrested? It was glorious. It was such a fantastic. Oh my God, Prakhar. This was a while back when the Ayodhya thing was still going on. At that time, Hindu faction started claiming, especially Hindu NRIs, right? Like amongst
Hmm.
us, they are legitimately some of the worst, worst people. They started getting a little too patriotic and a little too nationalist about everything. And this guy fucking forgot that he was in Dubai.
Hmm.
And and over there, he was like, this mosque was actually a temple. There's a temple underneath this and everything. And he got arrested for it. It was so
My
fun.
God, so stupid, man.
So much fun.
And just for the record,
Yeah.
even if it was a temple underneath there, I mean, we are way past the point of like,
It's
why
a
do you need
mosque
to?
now.
Yeah, who
Yes.
cares?
But
Who cares,
do you
bro?
know how many things existed before your house was built
Yeah,
on it?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Fuck off. They're such idiots, dude. Anyway, Sandy, how is the Shroud Indian now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, recently a study came out that looked at something we haven't really talked about so far, which are DNA traces. Like nobody till date had done any kind of DNA testing on the
Hmm.
shroud, right? And what researchers found was honestly a little bit unexpected. They detected genetic material from multiple populations, which in itself isn't shocking given how widely the shroud has traveled over centuries, right?
Yeah.
But among those genetic markers were signals that could be linked to regions including India. And when I say India, I'm specifically talking to the Indus Valley civilization, right? So that is where
Hmm.
some amount of the genetic material apparently was found on the shroud. The authors of the study hypothesize that the shroud may have picked up India related DNA during the textile trade of the past. So, just a very brief history lesson for people who don't know. I am not a history geek myself, but I know a little bit. Is that India, for most of human history, was the hub of all textile trade in the world. India was known for its textiles. So,
Hmm.
anytime there was any textile anywhere in the medieval world, there's a very good chance it might have passed through India at some point,
Yeah.
right?
And this
So,
continued happening till the time Britain brought in power looms
exactly.
and moved. So it continued well into modern history.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Up until I would say, please don't quote me on the numbers, but I would say probably up until the 19th century, even.
19th century, yes.
Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
that
So,
was when 19th century was when power loom was brought in and
yeah.
materials were shifted to Europe and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. Up until the 19th century, India was literally the textile hub of the world. Pretty much all textile was going exclusively from India,
And
right?
China.
Yeah, I mean via the Silk Route, of course. That's where the term
Hmm.
also, the Silk Route
I mean,
also comes.
we
So
exported a lot of cotton textiles and China exported a
yes,
lot of silk
silk, yes.
textiles. Yeah.
But cotton being the cheaper of the two,
Yeah.
I think pretty much 90% of the world's cotton and textiles was being exported from India around that time. Like India was
We
a very, very, very wealthy nation as a result of this textile business that it had going on for a very long amount of time in history, right? So it's absolutely not shocking at all to have found some kind of Indian DNA on a piece of cloth that existed even
Yeah.
1,000 years ago, because there's a very good chance it might have gone from India in the first place.
Yeah.
right?
And also people who handled it. Like that's how people work. Like I mean, if you do DNA testing for us also, like the American U23andMe or whatever, we have, ancestral lineage in a million different places. So
Yeah.
it could have come literally from anywhere. It's a,
Exactly, exactly. So, talking about the India related DNA, this is based, so the study, it is based on the unexpected finding that as much as 38.7% of the DNA contamination in it came
Mm.
from people with India related maternal lineage. Now, I am not a scientist.
or
Again, this proves nothing to me, right? Just saying. As
yeah.
someone who has like very basic comprehension of scientific stuff, this does not sound all that unexpected or shocking to me. Now,
Yeah,
before we all jump to conclusions and start building entirely new origin theories, which by the way, people on the internet have already started doing this,
of course.
it's important to understand what the researchers actually said and more importantly, what they didn't say, right?
Mm.
However, if you scroll through any form of social media related to this discovery, you will see a whole host of Indians, especially Hindus, celebrating the fact that Jesus could have Indian origins and that Christians have been worshipping a Hindu god all along for all of these centuries.
God.
Anyway, the presence of DNA from different parts of the world does not mean the shroud originated in those places. It
Mm.
simply means that at some point in its history, it came into contact with people from those regions. And when you're dealing with an object that has been handled, displayed, transported, and examined by countless individuals over hundreds of years, that's not entirely surprising, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also need not mean that they are from those regions. It might mean that their ancestry is from those
Yes,
regions. Which
exactly.
is, it's such a wild card. Like you cannot say anything with this.
And just again, if just because we are speculating, even if the genes go back to the Indus Valley civilization, what's to say that some person from the Indus Valley civilization didn't just travel outside and settled in the Mediterranean around that time, and then that came into contact with that person as well. Like as long as
Yeah.
we're speculating about the origins of it, there are so many countless possibilities of what
I
might have
mean,
happened, right?
migration was a very common thing back then, no? So,
Yeah.
Migration has
No,
always been a
migration
very
was
common
not.
thing.
yeah.
No. Intercontinental migration was very, very difficult at that point of time.
Yeah,
It is
no,
much more likely that the descendants
yeah,
did so,
Hmm.
descendant.
which is very valid. And the least valid theory, like absolutely a
Yeah.
fucking impossible theory, is that Jesus was a Hindu god. Like, calm the fuck
Yeah.
down.
Not
But
even Hindu god. He was a Hindu by.
No,
I mean,
Hindu god
okay,
is what they are saying. And
we
we
are
have
not
so
claiming,
many.
we are not claiming. Okay, let me explain the chain of thought, right? So they are not claiming Jesus to be Hindu, right? They are
Hmm.
claiming Jesus to be Indian, and because Jesus could be Indian, obviously it means that Jesus is a
Hmm.
Hindu. That's
See, Ashwata,
how the train
you
of
see
thought is going.
what happened here? You see what happened here? The way we're brainwashed. If you're Indian, you're just Hindu.
That's what,
See
no,
how it works.
Sandy said in the comment section, people are saying that the Christians have been worshipping a Hindu god all along.
Yeah,
Which is just,
and does this chain of thought not make sense to you? That because he might have been Indian, obviously he might have been Hindu. You know what I'm saying?
yes,
In fact, the study found genetic traces not just from India, but from various parts of Europe and the Middle
Of
East
course.
as well, right? Which, if anything, reflects the journey of the fucking shroud rather
Yeah.
yeah.
than proving anything about where it came from.
And Middle East is not surprising at all. Jerusalem is the hub of
Jerusalem is in the Middle East.
all, yeah,
Yes,
it's the hub of all religious activity for a very long period of time. So, of
yes.
course, it has traces from there.
Also, Constantinople, Istanbul as we know it, it was the seat of
Yeah.
power for a very significant portion of history. The Ottoman
Yeah.
Empire, one of the biggest empires in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
world, in the history of the world, its seat of power was Constantinople, and Constantinople is a
Yeah.
stone's throw away from Jerusalem.
Hmm.
So, and this is where it gets interesting. It does add another layer to how widely this object might have traveled, or at least how many different cultures and populations it has intersected with over time, right? Because now, instead of asking just, is this real or not, you're also asking, where has this been? Who has interacted with it? And how many different hands has it passed through over the last however many centuries, right?
Hmm.
The researchers themselves were quite careful in making any of these claims. By the way, the researchers did not claim that the shroud was Indian or even Jesus Christ was Indian.
Of course not.
Of
Okay,
Of
course.
course
just
not.
again and again, I'm repeating this for the record. Under no circumstance did they say that the shroud or even Jesus was Indian. They just said
The Indian
that they found
Express.
some DNA evidence which
Hmm.
could be Indian. There's a difference. Okay, there's a
The
difference.
That's
Indian
enough for.
Express used to be a better newspaper, right? Or was it always this fuck all? Was
I
it
don't know.
always Times of India level, or was it
Okay.
a
No, I think this is the case with most digital newspapers. They need to make everything clickbaity. So
Exactly.
I genuinely don't know whether Indian Express is good or bad or where on the spectrum it lies. But I would not judge newspapers or the authenticity based on the headline. I would actually go through the material because the headlines are almost always decided by whoever the editor for the digital edition is. And their
so
job is to get most clicks.
did this material did the actual article, did it make correct claims, or was it just
Yeah, there are
what? It
some
made correct claim?
yeah, there's a controversy around the shroud, they claim. Then potentially, there's a word potentially, which is the biggest word for me. Potentially linked to interactions with the Indus Valley, referred to as Hinduin, according to the rabbinic text. So,
Okay.
they have used some, the like in law cases, you have to use allegedly a lot of
Yeah.
times,
Hmm.
just to
Yeah.
be clear. So, similarly in scientific stuff, allegedly, potentially, these are some maybe, perhaps, might be, could be. These are some very keywords that you need to use until and unless it's been like written in stone that it's absolutely a fact, right?
Hmm.
The researchers themselves were quite careful. They didn't claim that it proves anything about the shroud's authenticity. They didn't say this confirms any particular theory, even. What they did say is that the genetic diversity found on the cloth suggests a complex history of exposure and movement, which is fine, which is true, right? Which is, at this point, exactly what you would expect from something like this, right?
Yeah.
So, once again, we don't get a clean answer. We don't get closure
Hmm.
of any kind. What we get instead is another piece of information that makes the story richer, more complicated perhaps, and slightly harder to pin down. And honestly, if you've made it this far into the Shroud of Turin, that's just kind of the pattern, right?
Yeah.